I am the sort of person who can't live without sleep. So I used to either sleep in class or find a way to just get in at least 6 hours of sleep. But I know people who would not sleep for days, sleep for like 2 hours for a week, etc., etc. Quite crazy actually. So whenever FMS students would ask auto wala bhaiyas or rickshaw bhaiyas to drop them to FMS, they would be like KMC जाना है and उसके सामने वाली building.
Let me just put it out there. I'm so jealous. Like 25,000 for 2 years is what you paid during your time.
Yes, I did. But don't worry, I'll get to the caveats. Then you will feel less jealous.
Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. As you know that I am not from FMS, but a lot of you want to go there. So I invited a very special guest today, Sneha Roy. Welcome her. Sneha has been a very dear friend of mine. Sneha and I were working together at Mondelez. She's from FMS batch of 2018-20 and Sneha is an engineer, computer science engineer from Delhi College of Engineering. After that, she joined FMS. She did her MBA there, then she joined Mondelez. We were together for about 1.5 years. That's how I met her. And you'll be surprised to know that she's also one of the very few people who've actually moved from marketing to consulting. And she's now working as a strategy and consulting analyst at Accenture. So welcome, Sneha. Thank you so much for taking your time to address the questions of the aspirants on FMS, everything about FMS that we're going to discuss today.
Thank you. Thanks, Shweta, for that lovely introduction. And I'm super excited to be here and talk to you.
So the first question that I'm going to ask you is that how difficult is it to make it to FMS? This is a question that every aspirant would have. How many seats are there? How much percentile is required? Like, what does it take to get into FMS?
Sure. That's a great question. So Shweta, FMS actually recently just changed the admission criteria. So I think I was the last batch from 18 to 20 where CAT was given a very high weightage for admissions. However, looking at the trends of even IIMs and other B schools, the weightage given to just CAT percentile has reduced.
Yes.
And once upon a time, it used to be 80% weightage to CAT percentile, which is now only 50%, at least for the final selection. So I'll walk you through the entire admission process and the selection procedure as well. So there are 287 seats right now in FMS. This has also been increased slightly by about 1/3 from, I think, last year's batch only. And the first stage is the shortlist. So there are approximately 10 times the number of students invited in the shortlist, and this is purely based on CAT percentile, the first shortlist for interviews and for the rest of the procedure. Not all sections are given equal weightage for FMS admissions. So VARC sections actually given 40% weightage, DILR is given 30%, and QA is given 30%. So good news for everyone who's good at VARC. And
also not good at quants,
yeah.
like someone like
yeah. So that was me. I was one of those people. Anyway. So also one thing to note is that female candidates are given an additional 5 points to encourage diversity in the batch. So based on your CAT percentile and extra 5 points, if you are a female candidate, you will be invited to interviews if you are in the top approximately 2,500 to 3,000 candidates who are shortlisted.
Okay, so then Shweta, that will be like 98-ish, 99-ish, right?
I think lower 98s is good for somebody who's a female candidate and is also strong in the ARC section.
Okay.
So this is also one of the changes. So 2 years ago, you wouldn't have heard of somebody with a 98.xy getting into FMS, but that has changed recently. So people with even the lower 98 ranges, when I'm talking about the general category students, can make it and get a seat in FMS.
Okay, and once someone has made it through, let's say, the shortlisting round, in the selection process, what's the weightage and how does it happen?
So, Shweta, in the selection process, CAT has 50% weightage. Your CAT marks in percentile. Then the rest 50% is made out of several different components. First is your 10th and 12th marks. Both of these are given 10% weightage. Then after that, you have the PI personal interview round, which is given 15% weightage, and you have a discussion on the SOP. So at the time of application, FMS asks students to fill out an SOP as to why they want to do an MBA and why FMS is the right fit for them. So a discussion on what you've written and submitted when you were submitting the application accounts for 15% weightage, and then there is a 5% weightage for an extempore, which is essentially a topic that you will be given on the spot, and you will have to speak for about 1 to 2 minutes on that particular topic. It could be anything. Mostly what you say during the personal interview, and the interviewers usually pick up on something interesting that they think in your story that you're pitching, and you're asked to elaborate further on that. So that's the extempore round, which counts for 5%. So 50% CAT and 50% all of these things, 10th, 12th, PI, extempore, and SOP discussion account for the remaining 50%.
I'm very curious to know, do you remember your topic? Like, what were you asked?
Yeah, so I essentially come from an army background, and I think something around that had come up during the personal interview when I was introducing myself. So my topic was basically uh, my opinion on OROP, which is one rank, one pension, which is also a very hot topic in the news those days.
Yeah.
So another thing to be abreast about is definitely the current affairs which is happening, and even if they remotely relate to your life, it can be something that is given as a topic for your 1 minute extempore round.
Okay. I do want to now stress upon one of the questions that's asked by every single person out there. You know that FMS has such a great ROI, but are there any caveats there? Like, so if you could address what is, let's say, the cost of attendance of studying at FMS, if you could elaborate on not only the tuition fee but everything that constitutes the living expenses, all those expenses included. How much does it cost to study at FMS?
Absolutely, Shweta, and that's again a very good question. And so, one of the many changes other than the admission criteria that FMS made just after I passed out and our batch graduated was also increasing the fees. So up until my batch, which is people who graduated in 2020, we paid a tuition fee of 25,000 rupees for 2 years, and this batch, the 2021 batch onwards, the fees has actually become around 50,000 per semester, which is actually 2 lakh rupees over the course of 2 years, and this is just the tuition fee. Other
Actually,
than
super
this,
jealous. Let me just put it out there. I'm so jealous. Like 25,000 for 2 years is what you paid during your time.
yes, I did, but don't worry, I'll get to the caveats. Then you will feel less jealous. So there's 2 lakh of tuition fees. Other than that, FMS is a non-residential campus for 90% of students. There is just one hostel, which is a boys' hostel, and there are no hostels for girls. And there are also, I think, hardly 15 to 20 students who are not from Delhi get seats, and that's also like a draw situation which happens there. So majority of the students live off campus in flats around Delhi University and the North Campus area. So here the rent of a typical house would be approximately to 10 to 12 to 15,000, depending on the type of accommodation and what your budget is, how far away you're living from the main center. And of course, Shweta, you would know this from your undergrad days.
I lived in Kamla Nagar actually during my undergrad, so
Yeah,
I can relate with it.
exactly. So those of you who don't know, Shweta's undergrad college is KMC is
Yes.
just opposite FMS. So, and actually the bigger building. So whenever FMS students would ask, auto wala bhaiyas or rickshaw bhaiyas to drop them to FMS, they would be like, KMC jana hai, and uske samne wali building. So
Okay. That's so weird.
yeah,
You know,
so
I used to spend a lot of my lunch breaks at FMS because the food there was like, it was better than what KMC has had to offer.
really,
So
I don't believe
yeah.
that. I don't believe that at all. Yeah, so I was talking about the living expenses, 10 to 15,000, depending on what kind of accommodation you want to get per month for living expenses. And of course, like living outside of campus, you have to arrange your own food and all of those things which come under basically living expenses, electricity bills, etc., etc. So ballpark, if I were to say like approximately approximately, let's take a figure of 3 lakh rupees over the course of 2 years as living expenses, including rent essentially. We have 2 lakhs of tuition fees, 3 lakhs of living expenses, and also there's another catch which some students don't know about. Within FMS, basically all of the academic and non-academic societies, as well as the placement cell, come under this body called MSA, which is Management Science Association. And because we have such low fees, essentially a lot of the society work or a lot of the placement activities require a higher budget than what the students pay as essentially tuition fees. So there's also a payment of 50,000 per year approximately, which is required by students so that these activities can be smoothly conducted across the academic session. So then you have your 1 lakh rupee there as well.
Still pretty
Yes.
affordable, given the fact
Yeah.
that I paid about like 25 lakhs in total for 2 years, and I haven't even accounted for a lot of other expenses that come along the way. It's definitely
Yes.
great. And I'm sure, like, unless you have more to cover under cost of attendance, I feel like the very next question that people are gonna have is about placements. So yes, FMS charge is low, but what about placements?
Yeah. So I think it's a great college in terms of placements, because net you have, pretty much the same placements as your IIM ABCs of the world. So if I were to like break down placements across like different functions basically, so within consulting, then you have your MBBs, Carney, and Big Fours, Accenture, who come to campus to recruit in healthy numbers. That is there. And for marketing and sales, you have your FMCGs, or all of the FMCGs, HUL, ITC, Mondelez, Nestle, etc., who visit campus. And the only department I think where I think ABC definitely have a stronger edge and is finance, basically, and especially with the PE, VC, and investment banking companies, which if they do come to FMS, are usually smaller boutique ones, and some of the larger names haven't been seen on campus for a while now. So this is one department where I think we can improve our placements. And talking about IT and operations, you have your Amazon, Flipkart, and all of these e-commerce companies that offers program, product roles, etc. And as far as the salaries of these companies go, so these MNCs usually offer the same salary across campus for any particular role. Yeah, so salaries are same across different campuses because companies want to have the same pay across campuses for one particular role. The only thing to keep in mind for salaries is, and this is not just FMS specific, for any B school, and Shweta has covered this in other videos, is also the fact that the placement reports essentially publish a figure which is not literally inflated because it's technically correct. However, it includes a lot of components which are one-time payouts, and also things like ESOPs which are paid over a course of a couple of years but are clubbed together and shown as one amount, which is then printed in the placement report. So that is just one thing to look out for, that your joining bonuses, your retention bonuses, and your ESOPs, which will essentially be either paid out only once or a certain percentage over a couple of years. I also added and summed into one figure which is published as your average CTC. So that is one thing to take care of, valid across obviously all B schools and their placement reports.
Yeah, that's very good input. In fact, I had read somewhere that the highest drawn CTC at FMS was like 32, if I'm not wrong. That's right, though. I mean, just checking with you, that's the right figure, right?
I think I've also seen statistics like highest CTC of 50 plus in India and stuff, and that's I mean it's obviously not a lie, it's a fact. But then those are probably companies that have give a lot of ESOPs and shares which are paid out over the course of 3 to 4 years instead of just a one time thing. So you have to stick it out in the company, and then you get a certain percentage which is vested over the course of a couple of years, and then that is added up and presented as one figure. So that's definitely not the fixed pay that a student can expect to like get in hand every month.
Another very popular question that's not been addressed very well out there is regarding the life at FMS. Like you mentioned that there's like no residential, it's not a residential campus. So how is the life at campus? Like if you could walk us through, let's say, the different clubs and societies that are there, or are festivals celebrated, like all these kinds of things.
Yeah. So I would say that life at FMS is somewhat like a homely and like a close-knit family sort of campus life, essentially. So while there are no hostels, everyone lives around North Campus, which is like this, if people who are not from Delhi, this like nice and green and happening area in Delhi where you have a lot of like nice places to go and hang out and do stuff outside of, just attending classes. Everyone lives in flats nearby, so there's a lot of culture of like, studying together where people would do it in IIMs and hostels. Here, people visit each other's houses literally and then like pull all-nighters, do projects, study together. That is what the entire compensation of lack of hostel life are substitute for that. And in terms of activities that you can do on campus, I think there's a lot which is offered actually. So there's academic societies and there's your non-academic societies. In terms of academic societies, your typical marketing society, finance, consulting, etc., etc., who go about like doing their business, conducting workshops and preparing like the junior batch for summer placement and then the senior batch for final placements. So all of that, you can pursue your academic interests which are aligned to any particular field. And other than this, there are a lot of non-academic societies, for example the media relations cell or the alumni relations cell, and a lot of sports societies for anything that you want to pursue, cultural societies, etc. So there's definitely not a dearth of available opportunities for people to go and explore. So I'm sure that whatever you're interested in, either academically or as a hobby, there is a group of people already doing that, and then you will fit in quite well. So that amount of diversity is there.
Yeah, I think in the Red Brick Summit, which is like the corporate fest of IIM Ahmedabad, we did see a lot of FMS teams coming and participating, and they were always like the winners. I don't know what you guys feed them, but they are always winning those competitions. So yeah, I'm sure. And how about like Sangharsh? Like, do they participate in a lot of sports competitions? So at IIM Ahmedabad, we have Sangharsh, which is an inter-college sports thing. So like,
Yeah.
do you guys like
So
have sports on campus?
yes, yes. So I think one of the big rivalries is between FMS and IIM Lucknow, and this is one festival which I think it's called Manfest or something, Varchastra, something like that. I don't think I'm saying it right. But this is like one sports slash cultural festival where like FMS students definitely go everywhere in team. Like almost the whole campus is not there whenever this fest is going on, and people are going and participating in different sports slash cultural festivals.
And how about the academic life on campus? Like, if you could walk us through how the 2 years look like, how many courses you study, and is it as hectic as, let's say, the other IIMs? How is it basically?
Yeah, you will have to tell me that. but sure. So I think it's over 2 years, definitely 4 semesters, like any other standard MBA program in India. So there are 8 subjects per semester across 4 semesters. And in the first year, the 8 into 2, 16 subjects are all compulsory for everyone, and they are your standard MBA program subjects like marketing, finance, IT operations, etc. And everyone has to like study all of the subjects. Between the first year and second year, we have a summer internship, and which is where Shweta and I met at Mondelez while interning during the summers.
I
And
just remember the time also when we met exactly. Like, I think it was the PTO round which was going on when we interacted the most.
Yeah, so that was fun. That was so much fun. I'm actually sorry for like kids who didn't get to do who had to do a virtual internship
Yes.
in these past 2 years because of COVID. But
Mondelez office was like one of the best places to be.
yeah, for sure. Definitely, the house of Cadbury. Yeah. And in the second year, after you come back from your summers, you again have 2 semesters with 8 subjects each. However, the good part is that here you can actually choose electives. So across the two semesters of the second year, 3 subjects are compulsory, 3 each, and 5 in each semester can actually be chosen per students. So there's a long list of available subjects which FMS offers, and you can find this on the website also. It's present, which people can choose as electives and actually do a major or a minor in any one sub function of MBA that they want to. And you can also like take on additional subjects other than the compulsory 8 subjects per semester, and like do a double major and double minor for people who want to like study more, whoever they are. So so that's how academics essentially is structured across the 2 years.
So, for people who have been like at the IIMs and all these institutes, then there's generally this question. So, I'm gonna pose it to you as well. Do you guys get enough sleep when you're like during those 2 years, especially during the first year?
Yeah, so I think it totally depends. So first semester, absolutely not. Like when summers are on head and then you just entering and you don't know what's happening and then everything is intimidating and it's quite crazy. So I'm the sort of person who can't live without sleep. So I used to either sleep in class or find a way to just get in at least 6 hours of sleep. But I know people who would not sleep for days, sleep for like 2 hours for a week, etc., etc. Quite crazy actually during the first semester because you have your summers like as soon as you enter like in September, October, and then immediately have your first semester exams also after that, and
Back to back.
so that yeah. But after summers in the second semester, it's a little bit relaxed because you're into the grind, and then you've seen basically the worst, so now you feel like yeah, okay, now we can handle anything and do everything.
Yeah.
And then you have summers and people, then there are two types of people essentially who essentially get PPOs, and then there are the ones who have to sit for finals. So again, people who end up getting PPOs like chill throughout second semester usually, and do a lot of like cultural sports related stuff, and just relax in life before getting into the whole corporate grind. And people who have to sit in finals essentially again in the whole November, December, January part of the year, they again have to balance academics while studying for placements. However, I would say definitely amongst the fourth semesters, first is definitely more hectic. And another good thing with the third and fourth is, like I mentioned, you can choose your electives. So you don't really have to study subjects which you are not either good at or not super interested in. So, for example, I was like not super, into finance, so I like dropped. I chose subjects that like marketing and sales and IT, where I felt like my strong footing and my interests both were lying, and hence I ended up doing better also in the second year subjects because those
Yeah.
were electives I had chosen myself.
Yeah, it's very similar to what IIM Ahmedabad also has, and majority of the students actually end up scoring more in the second year as compared to the first
Yeah,
year. Yeah, so that's
yeah.
there. But I do want to check with you, like another thing. Is there anything that you miss out on if you get into FMS? Like something that you
Yeah.
probably don't get to experience if you get into FMS versus in other V schools?
Yeah, sure. So I think for me, one of the biggest factors of FOMO is definitely the hostel life. So at least in my undergrad, I had this huge campus where most of my friends stayed in hostel, and then though that the amount of like number of bonds you build by staying in like one building in a city with people who you're studying in class with and coming back home to, essentially that's like another level of bonding I feel which happens, which is actually seen in FMS. The few FMS students that actually end up do living in that one boys hostel I mentioned. But somehow I feel like the entire flat arrangement can never compensate for that level of like batch bonding as probably people in hostels get. So that is one. And the second is definitely exchange programs. So FMS doesn't have exchange programs and tie-ups with international universities. As a substitute, what some students choose to do is go to summer schools in Europe essentially for 2 months. And so that is, of course, it's out of their own pockets, and it's like a 4 to 6 week thing. But hardly anybody, maybe like 10 students across the entire batch of 300 would choose to do that. It's not the same thing as an exchange program, and the campus doesn't facilitate that. I think that is one of the shortcomings, and again something that I wish that I had experienced, but wasn't able to, unfortunately. So yeah, so those would be the two things I feel like. Other than that, nothing comes to mind. It's a great place to be. Yeah.
I think one last question, if you may, is how do students end up making this choice of FMS versus all the different institutes? So for me, I think it was an easy choice for me given that my interview was late April and the result of IIM Ahmedabad came like in the first week of April. So I didn't even
Yeah.
sit through the interview process. But let's say someone does and they have calls from all other institutes in FMS. How do they make this choice?
So, Shweta, I think that's a very personal decision for each and every person. Like, I have people in my network who who have, blindly chosen, ABCs after getting into them. And then I also have people, batchmates of FMS, who've actually like, chosen FMS in spite of like probably having like 6 or 7 other converts across like top B schools in India. And I think it's again a very personal choice. One of the biggest things, at least before the fees was increased slightly, was the ROI factor, where it was much, much more, when the total tuition fees was 25,000. So that was quite amazing. And that is one thing that people consider big time. And I feel that after basically like you have your admissions, and then you have like a couple of institutions to decide from, you really need to sit down and think that what it is, that what matters to you, why are you going to B school, and what do you want to achieve over there. And definitely talk to current students, talk to alumni, and then figure out for yourself what is the best fit. Essentially, there's definitely no one shoe that fits all. And depending on one's priorities, placement wise, MBA life wise, you can take a call and decide once once you're lucky enough to have multiple admission offers.
I just do want to highlight that 6 lakhs is like still amazing. Given that I don't think many people in your batch would have taken education loans. At least in your batch, they would not have. But even in the subsequent batches, they probably might not have taken education loans, right?
Yeah. There are a couple of people who took loans because, for the entire living expenses, etc., and also for the tax benefit that you get on education loan after you start earning post MBA. But yeah, that was definitely a very small minority. Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's at least all my questions on life at FMS and about FMS in general. And would really like to thank you, Sneha. And in case someone who's watching who still has a lot of questions around FMS, feel free to put them in the comments. And in case you want Sneha to come back on the channel, please do like or at least comment that Sneha, we want you back. Then I'll bring you back.
I'm flattered already. No one has said anything, but I'm still glowing.
No, but seriously, hats off to the elaboration that you were able to add on to the channel. I feel like if people like you, and even though you mentioned I am like now being rivals of FMS, if people like you from other campuses came on board and addressed these questions, I think people would be able to make better choices in life. So thank you so much for taking out the time, Sneha.
Thank you, Shweta. This has been wonderful catching up.